Today in the deep dive, we're tackling a complaint that you hear, well, pretty much everywhere these days. It's that feeling that generative AI is just, too generic.
Yeah, you have this really complex idea. You go to start a query, and what you get back reads like a boilerplate memo.
Exactly, a boilerplate memo. It's just profoundly underwhelming.
And what our sources are suggesting is that this frustration is almost always misdirected. It feels like a problem with the machine.
But it's not.
It's not. It's a reflection of the user's own cognitive input.
That is the mission for today. We're diving into this really uncomfortable idea that the AI's output isn't a limitation of the tool.
It's a mirror.
It's a mirror reflecting the user's thinking. The AI isn't shallow, the prompt was. We're here to challenge that assumption that the machine should have to compensate for our own, intellectual vagueness.
And this is a deep dive into the actual skills needed. It's not about finding some magic phrase. It's about what it takes to get genuinely valuable, nuanced results. We'll explore that core idea, define what competence looks like, and then get into the sharp psychological reasons for the backlash.
So this thing people are calling generic AI output is really just the result of generic prompting.
Generic prompting, generic thinking, or maybe most of all, just an unwillingness to sit with the ambiguity it takes to really articulate a problem in the first place.
AI isn't creative in the way a human is.
Not at all. But prompting it well requires a huge amount of creativity, clarity, taste, even restraint and systems thinking. These are all demanding skills.
They're developed skills.
Absolutely. The sources use this perfect example. Say you ask the machine, how do I improve my life?
Okay, the biggest, vaguest question possible.
Exactly. And you'll get the most obvious, correct answer. Sleep more, eat better, set goals, be consistent.
And people get mad at that.
They do.
Yeah.
But the scandal isn't that the AI gave a shallow answer. The scandal is that the user expected this profound, customized insight.
Without earning it.
Yeah.
Without giving any context to work with.
That's the core of it. Okay, so let's unpack that. Section 1. The scathing reframe AI exposes laziness.
I like that framing. The scathing reframe.
The really uncomfortable truth that comes out of the material is that a lot of users don't actually want deep insight.
What do they want then?
Transformation. But without the work of articulation, they want the outcome without the rigor of defining the input.
You can see that in the expectations people put on these systems. Right?
Oh,
We
absolutely.
want it to guess their values, to magically find their blind spots.
Compensate for their vagueness and then somehow surprise them.
All while they provide zero constraints, no context, no tension, no stakes, nothing.
I mean, you're asking the tool to do the absolute hardest part of being human, deciding what actually matters. So the argument here is really blunt.
Yeah.
AI doesn't punish laziness. It just shines a huge spotlight right on it.
Okay, but hold on. If the answer is clear and obvious, why is the first reaction to just dismiss it as basic? Is that just ego?
It's a cognitive dismissal. I think it's rooted in what they were hoping for. They wanted novelty, not truth.
Something they hadn't heard before.
Right. The material points out 3 specific confusions here. First, people confuse what's obvious with what's easy.
Oh, okay.
The plan to run a marathon is obvious. Train consistently. But it is not easy. AI gives the obvious plan, and the user rejects how hard it is to execute by just blaming the plan for being simple.
I see. So what's the second confusion?
It's this belief that depth has to feel complicated.
Instead of just being precise.
Exactly. If an answer is clear, concise, something you can actually do, people assume it must be shallow. We've been trained to respect complexity, not clarity.
And the third one is about how we see the tech itself.
Yeah, it's that toxic consumer mindset. I put in a sentence, you give me wisdom.
A vending machine for insight.
Yes. And that whole mindset is just completely incompatible with the kind of partnership you need to get good results.
So it's about the fact that the system is literal. Our sources say that's the key.
That's the whole concept of the literal system. The AI isn't failing when it gives a simple answer. The failure is expecting insight without friction.
Without iteration.
Without specifying what you want. The machine is literal, and a literal system is just a brutal, honest mirror. If you want nuance from it, you have to bring nuance to it.
That's a perfect transition. If we accept this brutal mirror idea, what does competence actually look like? That brings us to section 2, the competence divide.
Right, and we have to stop talking about finding the one perfect prompt. That's a myth.
It's not about a magic spell.
No, it's about thinking in systems. The skills the sources list what a successful user is actually doing, it's so much more than just asking a question.
We're talking about things like tonal engineering, perspective stacking, constraint design,
Mm.
and epistemic humility. I mean, that's a lot of jargon for a text box.
It is, but we should unpack them because they are the actual work. Tonal engineering is just controlling the voice, the cadence.
The cultural frame.
Exactly. And perspective stacking is where you ask the AI to wear different hats. You tell it, act as a historian, a financial analyst, and a futurist, and make them debate each other.
Ah, so you're creating the tension that was missing from the first vague prompt.
You got it.
Right.
Then constraint design is telling the AI what it can't do.
Setting boundaries.
Word count, audience, things to avoid. You force it into a narrow channel where deep thought is the only way out. And iterative refinement is just treating every output as a first draft, not the final word.
The most interesting one to me, though, is epistemic humility. What does that actually look like?
It's just accepting that you don't know everything. It's knowing what you don't yet know how to ask.
So you're not going straight for the final answer.
No. The humble user asks the AI to help them generate 10 better questions first. They use the tool to clarify the problem, not just solve the vague one they started with.
And you contrast that with the average user who just fires off one sentence, skims it, and says, this is dumb.
The difference is it's radical. The average user is playing a single piano key. The competent user is composing music. They're writing these long, multi-paragraph prompts. They're signaling intent, mapping out revisions. It's a whole methodology.
And this is where that perspective from Devin the Cold Truth really lands.
Yeah, Devin frames AI as a stress test for your own intellectual honesty.
The argument is that a lot of the vocal hatred for AI is just status panic disguised as principle. That's a heavy charge.
It is, but the logic is that AI removed the ambiguity that used to hide a lack of skill.
How so?
Well, before, if your work was just kind of dull, you can blame the deadline, the research, whatever. Now, you ask the machine for exactly what you want, and if the output is dull...
The implication is that your idea was dull to begin with.
Exactly. It's not a technical flaw, it's an ego wound. Devin's point is, if an AI answer feels generic, it's because the question could have been asked by anyone about anything.
Depth requires specificity.
It requires the courage to add constraints, tension, trade-offs, to be specific enough that you could actually be wrong. Most users stay safely vague and then get mad at the machine for not reading their minds.
That psychological piece is huge. Which brings us to section 3, the ego kill shot. This is where we look at the views of Val and Liz.
Right. Val's core message is just, it's unforgiving. People want the result, but they hate the structure it takes to get there.
The shiny essay, the perfect ad copy.
But they don't want the discipline. AI rewards precision. It rewards intellectual ownership. It does not reward vibes.
You know, in a normal conversation with a person, we have what you could call a social cushion. If I start rambling, you'll probably nod politely, fill in the gaps for me.
I'll assume you have some brilliance in progress happening.
Exactly. The machine doesn't do any of that. It isn't impressed. It takes your half-formed thought and gives it back to you, literally.
And if you didn't define what brilliance meant, it just gives you the average.
Which leads right to Liz's point, the ego kill shot. This is maybe the most uncomfortable part of the whole analysis.
Liz argues that most people don't actually hate the AI. They hate that it reflects them without any flattery.
And that triggers an identity crisis.
A huge one. Especially for knowledge workers, for creatives, because AI doesn't care about your identity. It doesn't care if you call yourself a writer.
It only cares about articulation.
It just asks that one cold question over and over. What exactly do you mean by that? If you can't answer, your identity won't save you from a generic result.
And that explains so much of the backlash from people who define themselves by their creativity.
Absolutely. They hate the demystification of it all. They built their self-worth on this idea that creativity was this mystical, intuitive thing. Something you are.
And AI disrupts that.
It shows that style can be analyzed. That quality comes from taste, plus constraint, plus iteration. It proves quality is a system, not magic.
So if you can't steer the AI's output, if you can't critique it precisely, the sources say you were just operating on self-expression without real discernment.
Which isn't a skill, it's a mood. And that's why the anger is so personal. People are realizing their thoughts maybe weren't as sharp as they thought they were.
And the machine made that realization unavoidable.
Instantaneous and undeniable.
Okay, so that means we have to address the pushback, the common counterarguments. Let's move to section 4. The debate ends. We need to dismantle these objections.
Let's do it, starting with the biggest one you always hear.
AI kills creativity.
Right. And if you ask a creative person, that's what they feel, that the spark is being replaced.
But the rebuttal is that this is just a misunderstanding of creativity itself.
A fundamental one. Creativity has never really been about pure generation. It's always been about selection, judgment, refinement.
Connecting ideas.
Exactly. AI generates a million possibilities instantly. The human still has to do the hard part, deciding what matters, what's elegant, what's true to the intent.
So if you feel replaced, it means your process was just generating and then stopping.
Which is really just completion anxiety, not creativity.
Okay, next one. This is a big concern. AI makes people lazy.
And you can see why people say that. They see people using it for simple emails.
But the sources say it's misdiagnosing the cause.
It is. AI doesn't make anyone lazy, it just reveals who already was. The lazy user takes the first draft. The good user treats the AI like a sparring partner,
Constantly refining, pushing it further.
using it to go faster and deeper. It's the calculator analogy.
Right.
Bad students used it to stop learning math. Good students used it to skip the tedious stuff and focus on higher-level problem solving. AI just shifts where the effort goes.
Okay, let's get into the more philosophical critiques.
Yeah.
The big one. AI output is soulless.
This one is misplaced. AI doesn't lack a soul, it lacks values, and values have to be specified by the user.
You have to tell it what you care about.
Right. If you ask for a policy document but you don't say, prioritize social justice over financial efficiency, it's going to give you a neutral, data-driven answer. So when people say soulless, what they often mean is, I failed to communicate my values.
It's a communication failure, not a spiritual one.
Exactly.
What about the idea that AI devalues expertise? That feels very real for a lot of people.
It absolutely destroys credential-based authority, and the sources basically say, good riddance.
So what does it amplify instead?
Clarity, structured reasoning, discernment. The experts who feel threatened are the ones who relied on jargon and mystique to hide that their thinking wasn't that clear.
So it's not devaluing expertise, it's forcing merit out into the open.
That's the argument.
And finally, the aesthetic complaint. AI makes everything look the same. That generic tone again.
Homogeneity is a direct result of uniform input.
Garbage in, garbage out. Or maybe generic in, generic out.
That's it. Vague prompts, safe constraints. You get predictable results. If you want something distinct, you have to introduce tension, specify your audience, force it off the default path.
Which all comes back to the main meta-critique. Using AI isn't a real skill.
And the response is, using it well requires abstraction, decomposition, tonal control, meta-reasoning, editorial judgment.
That sounds like the definition of thinking.
It is high-level thinking. The people who say it's not a skill are often just advertising that they haven't developed one yet.
Okay, let's bring this all home. A final synthesis.
Right.
The core takeaway from all of this is so clear. AI does not replace thinking. If anything, it demands more of it.
And sharper thinking at that. It strips away all the excuses, the ambiguity, the performative depth.
And it replaces them with clarity, iteration,
Yeah.
and just direct responsibility for the final result.
And there's a meta-rebuttal here that kind of ends the whole argument.
It is.
If using AI were actually easy, everyone would be good at it, and they're not. The quality of output varies wildly. Some people produce garbage, some produce incredibly nuanced, competitive work from the exact same tool. That variation is the proof of the skill thesis.
So many people who are against generative AI are really just mourning a world where vagueness was protected.
A world where you could just gesture at brilliance and get away with it.
And that world is gone. Because the machine stopped pretending to be impressed.
AI doesn't lower the bar, it just removes the fog that let people pretend they were already clearing a much higher one.
So those who insist the tool is empty.
They're often just reacting to that moment of clarity when they realize the emptiness wasn't coming from the machine.
So the final provocative thought we want to leave you with is this. When you look at the results the AI gives you, what does your own thinking structurally permit it to generate?
Is the output really generic? Or is it your own clarity, your willingness to specify values and constraints and tension that's holding it back? That's the hard question that sticks around long after you close the tab.